0 people. I'm here. Maybe I can have one fan too. Quiet on the set, please, over there. Hey, we recorded your voice there. We're still at 0 people, so we can talk like regular folk. Okay. Okay, day 6 here. Doing a little square a day. And guess what? We're drawing trees. Who would have thought? Okay. So let's zoom out here after I got that all settled. But anyways, here's the drawing we're working on, going live every day almost until I finish. And I got my reference image with, here's the square I'm working on right here. So I'm just gonna get to it, make some progress, and then we'll continue tomorrow. That's what we're drawing right here. Okay. I like to have a little sheet of paper for my hand to go on so all my oils don't get on the paper, of course. And start with I got an HB there. There's my 2H and a 2B pencil. So, there's not a lot of activity in this square today. So if things go really quickly, I might do second square. We'll see how it goes. It's also very hot here, so I have a big light on next to me. And it gets a little toasty since it's supposed to be 94, or it is 94 degrees today. So as I was talking yesterday, we're continuing this tree down, right? And this is in the foreground of our image. So these trees are getting bigger, and we're getting to see a lot more. The scale of these branches is getting a lot larger as compared to some of these that we did up here a few days ago. So my marks here are spread out a little bit more. And then, hey, how's it going? And then we're just gonna slowly work our values together to create this elaborate texture that we've been doing for so long to create this forest. You hacker. Okay, not sure what that means, but okay. Let's meme. Hi, how's it going? So just working these branches, and then we're gonna go HB and then a 2B. Hey, very nice, bro, and good work. Thank you, I'm fine. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining and checking out. Let me show you a little wide on this, what we're working on this drawing here. So we're continuing on this forest. Here's the edge, even though the paper continues out. I like to have this edge on my paper because then I can sign it down here. And then, of course, that helps with matting and framing as well because I can cut off the extra pieces that I don't want and size it. Let's see. Bold cotton knitting. Wow, so cool. Thanks, Bold Cotton. Yeah, thanks, everybody. So for people who are new here, I'm just continuing. I do a square a day, and that way I can ensure I keep the quality that I want. What is this technique called? I don't know if there's an exact name for it. I just call it layering. I'm layering my values here to create the texture. I have a tutorial how to draw a forest where I go into it in great detail, and I normally on these lives explain it. This is day 6 of doing it, so I've lots of videos on it. But I'm essentially layering lightest to 3 values going from light to dark, and that builds this texture. And all my little marks are going in the direction of these branches. I normally extend my marks outside of the scale a little bit because as I add the darker values, I shade them in, and then I can watch the scale and everything develop a little bit more. So all these white areas here, that's actually going to be my darker shadows in the end. But at this point, I just leave them white because then I can kind of see things develop. But that was a long way of saying I don't know if there's a exact technique for this or a name of a technique besides just layering. So down here there's another little tree that I'm just sketching in lightly. How long did this take you? Let's see. So I started it's been like 16 months, but a lot of that time is because I'm not working on it every day. I've spent a lot of time working on my channel tutorials, and that's why I started this going live every day. Because on the lives was the only way I was ever making progress on it. But I was only even doing those every other week, so I figure if I commit to going live almost every day, then I can actually make some real progress. So in the last 6 days here that I've gone live, I've only really done this chunk, but it probably took me like 2 months prior to that to make that much progress because I was never working on it. Okay. So in case I'm working off this reference image here, so I have these grids on here as well, so I can scale it out. The forest, I'm not too hung up on getting the forest exact. This is Mount Rainier, photo I took at Reflection Lakes. The forest I'm not too hung up on getting exact. It's more the mountain itself, because people know the mountain so well. That's what I'm really trying to get on. This is the square I'm working on right here. There's not a lot of tree in this one. So if things go well, I might move on to a second tree, depending on how much of a rhythm I can get in. So you can see I had that little tree in the front, and then this big one continued down. That was my first layer with 2H. Now I'm gonna add just a slightly darker layer. This is HB pencil. You can do this with any sort of values you want. If you want to go a little bit darker, it's just easier if you do 2 to 3, because then you can layer them and really build that texture at such a small scale. But it's really just sort of controlled scribbling. Reminds me of the winter theme, by the way. Finally, an art live. Yeah, I'm going live every day, almost every day, and just showing progress on this trees. And also, it just kind of shows, realistically, when you have a day job and a house, how much, don't rush things. I'm not rushing to finish this as soon as possible. I just make small goals every day. Everyone else is just gaming. The lives, it's interesting when you get onto live streams, what people are doing. I was scrolling through them once, and one was just a person sleeping on a couch, which I shouldn't make fun of because they had more people watching than me. So that shows how entertaining I am. But can you sell your art for album cover? I would. I've sold some for book covers of some photography I've done. I guess it depends on, if there's something I've created that the person's interested in or you're interested in. I used to have a lot more of my photos on Instagram and Facebook and all that, but as everybody started to get into taking photos, I kind of lost interest in that, so most of them aren't online anymore. Let's just about on the lead here. Mechanical pencil problems. Hold on one second. There's a piece of lead stuck in here. Fewer people care about art and valued things, that's for sure. Can I get in touch? I'm about to release a snow piano album. Yeah, go for it. My email, I think it's on my YouTube page. It's info@erikfremstad.com. If you look, my page name is Erik Fremstad. Oh, dang it. There we go. Okay. I just had a piece of lead stuck in there. Very interesting stuff. It's a good thing you tuned into this live so you can watch me clicking this mechanical pencil. There we go. All right, let's get back to it. Yeah, reach out, info@erikfremstad.com, and I can reply, or just if you leave a comment somewhere. You'll have to leave me your email address. You might not want to do that, but okay, many thanks. I'll get in contact with you. I'm amazed with your work. Cool, yeah. I'm excited to see what you're thinking. Which country, Erik? I'm in the U.S. I'm in Washington State, in the U.S. So you can see as I'm layering the second value here, I'm making sure to lift up my pencil a lot. And again, as the scale is a little bit larger to the front, I'm just following, kind of like an upside down V a little bit, the branch structure of, the direction of these branches. And this other little tree, this tree is a little smaller. It's kind of in the shadows here, so we'll just make our marks a little smaller again. And on the next layer with our 2B pencil, that's where we really start to hone in. And another good thing about this technique is you really can't make mistakes as things develop really, pretty slow. Some might think it looks complicated, but it's really just scribbling, and it's really being patient is key. Most people, I think, just don't have the patience they want to finish this in, a couple weeks or something. And to get that realism, you're just not gonna be able to do it unless you're just going nonstop working on it. And then you might fatigue, because it does also tire your hand out doing this technique. Okay, so this is 2B, so now we're really starting to get those darker values. We can start to fill in these shadowy areas in between our trees, but just always make your marks in the direction of the branches. So like these branches from the center here of the trunk, they're coming down. It's just like up here. I want to start to carve in these branches with my darkest shadows, in this case, which is a 2B pencil. And I'm varying up my pressure a little bit too. So let's see. It's calming. Good. Good, yeah, I wondered if some people just like to watch the draw and I should stop talking, but I don't know if people, not everybody knows the process, so I want to make sure people learn if they want to try to do it at home. But yeah, like I said, how to draw a forest on my channel page. I have, some better angles, some close-up shots if you want to watch it a more succinct explanation. So, as I mentioned, I make those first couple layers a little wider, a little larger, than I'm actually aiming for. And then with these darker values, I can scale it back in a little bit to keep in proportion. Because this is a little bit bigger than I need it to be down here. And again, popping to my reference image. It's just hard to see with this. This tree does, this is the tree I'm drawing right here. It does disappear sort of down into this shadowy area. So I will sort of shade it back in. I don't know if I need it to be as dramatic as that one. I kind of like it popping out a little bit more here. Because, you know, it's also, this is one of the larger trees in the foreground, as I mentioned, and it really gives you a sense of that, this, you know, we're looking into the forest here. So I don't mind if it doesn't quite match the reference image a little bit. Just be really patient and make sure to keep your marks in the scale of your drawing. Like, even though over here this is all shadow, I don't want to just make big lines, because I think your paper does have, you know, it does kind of have a memory to it. And some of those lines are going to appear. Mountains are just so professional. I think you mean my, you mean this drawing up here? I think that's what you mean. Which, thanks. Yeah, I got a little small chunk left. That actually takes, which even though a lot of these chunks up here are more empty, it actually takes a lot longer to draw those. So I'm kind of procrastinating on that. These trees, it's really easy to get into a rhythm and just sort of tune out. So on these lives, I like to draw the trees because I can reply a lot more to comments and then just sort of stop and jump back in and stop and jump back in. Whereas on the mountain, I need to really just focus in. And again, like I mentioned, I'm trying to keep that like exactly in proportion. So it takes a lot more focus. Do you draw it in a 1-to-1 scale? It's not 1-to-1. I mean, these are 1 by 1 inch. Is that, maybe that's what you mean? This is, these little squares are 1 by 1 inch. And I am trying to draw it to a scale, but I don't know what that measurement would be, or what that ratio would be. But yeah, each of these squares, I try to do a 1 by 1 inch square a day. And especially when you're just getting into a rhythm. These trees used to take me, like a 1 by 1 inch square would take me 45 minutes to an hour. Now on these lives, I'm averaging probably about a half hour, but a lot of the times I mean with the photo taken pixel by pixel. Yeah, so I am matching the scale on the photo. Maybe you can see it. So I have the same grid that I dropped in on Photoshop on here. So this is a 1 by 1 inch square that I'm marked out, and then here's the 1 by 1 inch square I'm drawing. Hopefully that answers your question. But it's just controlled scribbling and being patient. This is that other little tree down here that I gotta make sure I carve out. Even in these shadows, I like to keep my lines really small. You know, if I were out, when you're there in person, even though the camera, which part of it might be the editing of the photo I did, but you know, your human eye, when you're out in nature, you're gonna pick up more details in these shadows. So I don't mind that these shadowy areas aren't super smooth. Those slight variations in the value of these shadows, you know, you'd be picking up trees hidden back there, or tree trunks or branches. So like up here, like it's not super smooth. You're still getting just a little bit of that texture. Just keeping it super random, going in the direction of these branches. You know, these are probably super heavy branches. They're all sort of laying down a little bit. But just keep things natural and organic and random. That's, you know, you don't want to create too much of a pattern when you're drawing nature scenes, and then it will start to look fake. I mean, if that's your goal, obviously you could do that, but if you want, I mean, if you want your more unnatural looking type of drawing. As I showed you though, this tree sort of disappears, so we did all that work, and I'm covering most of it up, but I'm leaving just a little bit of that texture as this tree goes back into those shadows where the sun isn't hitting. This photo was taken at like, it must have been 7:38 in the morning when the sun was just coming up, so a lot of these trees aren't getting a ton of light. But you can see obviously this one in the foreground, it's getting some of those highlights hitting the branches. But down at the bottom here, the sun wasn't hitting it yet. So even though I'm covering it up, you're still getting hints of that texture that we worked to develop. Just down in this little corner. Down here is the lake. We're just starting to see a little bit of grass down here that will continue on when we do this square in the future. What I like to do as I'm nearing the end of this little bit here, I'm gonna add, just gonna do a little bit of erasing to help develop the texture more. Not necessarily because I'm not happy with it, but it just sort of does a little bit of almost blending to help things come together just a smidge more, which I'll show you in 1 second here. Okay, so I got this I call it a pencil eraser. I don't know what the exact, it's an eraser. A little Faber-Castell, if that interests you, if you want one. And what I like about this eraser is it actually is kind of bad at erasing. But, so I sharpen it on some sandpaper here to clean it off, and it also leaves the edge a little rough, which, think about it, erasing with a little rough edge, it doesn't erase smoothly, so I can just lift off this top layer of graphite, and since it's rough, it leaves a little bit of texture behind. So down here, I'm just want to sort of push that graphite around a little bit. I'm just doing little taps. I'm matching the same sort of little dabs I was doing with my pencil. But this way I can just add in some subtle branches sort of tucked away in the shadows here as it disappears into the forest. And we can finesse it just a little bit. But you want to make sure your little taps with the eraser, you match that scale that I did with my pencil to keep everything in line. And as I said, since it doesn't erase very well, it smudges it a little. That's another reason why you want to keep your movements really small. But you can get some really subtle gradients in your values that way, which are hard to mimic with a... they're so small, like, you know, roughing it up like this. It's such a small little rough tip here. It's really hard to mimic that with your pencil. Kind of like a shortcut or something. But I do this often at the end because it's really sort of finessing detailed work. You don't want to do this in the middle or at the beginning because you'll end up covering a lot of it up. It'll just be sort of a wasted effort, whereas doing it right now, I can be a lot more strategic with it. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, well, 6 people here. If people want me to do another square, drop a comment quick. Otherwise, I might call that for today. So here's what we did today. We just did that little 1x1 inch square. People want me to do more. I probably got time today to do one more if people are interested. Otherwise, I'll save it for tomorrow. But that's pretty in line with the rest of what we got going on. Yeah, I think that looks good. So tomorrow I'll probably continue up here. I'm saving this river part or the lake part so I can just do these 5 squares in a row. And again, like in drawing realistic like this, one of the key parts is you want to get into a rhythm. So ideally what I'm going to do here is finish off all these trees, and then probably do the lake, then I'll come up here and finish the mountain. Main reason, as I mentioned earlier, this mountain is super tedious, and I'm kind of just procrastinating on it. But, all right. Thanks for watching. If anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments, or comment on any of my videos if there's something you want to see. But other than that, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.